I always believed that keeping my head down and doing the right thing would eventually pay off. Turns out, silence doesn't keep you safe, it just makes you invisible. The late summer heat clung to the walls of our house like a wet towel. Every surface felt sticky, and even the old ceiling fan in the dining room groaned as it spun. The morning news hummed from the AM radio tucked near the bread box, some local pastor talking about patience and the rewards of a humble life. I stirred my instant coffee, watching it swirl as if the answer to everything was hiding in the foam. From the porch across the street, Mr. Calhoun raised a hand in his usual slow motion wave. His collared shirt, always pressed despite the heat, shimmered in the sun as he called out, "Don't forget, pie contest next month. Alma always said falls for reckoning." I smiled faintly and nodded. Mr. Calhoun had a way of speaking that made everything sound like a warning wrapped in a compliment. Inside, Sierra's voice rang down the stairs, bright and oblivious. "Mom, do we still have that sea salt hairspray? I need it before my post." Pamela, ever the enabling mother, called back, "Check the basket in the bathroom, baby." I took another sip of coffee. This wasn't new. It had been like this since I moved back in a year ago, after Dad's job went under and Sierra dropped out of her third career exploration phase. I told myself it was temporary. I'd work remotely, help out until they got back on their feet. Only they never stood up again, and I kept working. After I wrapped up my morning calls, I walked past the kitchen and noticed Sierra leaning against the fridge, scrolling through her phone. She was wearing one of my old blouses, the nice one I saved for video meetings. I didn't mention it. What was the point? "Hey," she said, not looking up. "We're out of oat milk." "You could go get some," I replied, trying not to sound irritated. She gave a short laugh. "You're funny, you have a car." "I also have a full-time job," I said, quietly. Pamela appeared behind me, drying her hands on a floral towel. "Sweetheart, could you pick some up later? And maybe some of that granola Sierra likes?" I nodded without arguing. That was the rhythm, requests wrapped in smiles, my silence mistaken for agreement. Later that afternoon, I found myself back in my room, the heat thick and unmoving. I opened the closet and pulled down the dusty shoebox from the top shelf. It had once held my first real pair of heels. Now it held my insurance. I lifted the lid gently, careful not to disturb the faded envelope tucked between receipts and old birthday cards. Inside was my emergency fund, years of careful saving, in bills and deposit slips, mostly untouched. Just seeing it calmed me. It reminded me I still had something that was mine, something untouched by expectation. That night at dinner, Sierra brought up the idea of a beach trip. "Just a weekend," she said, swirling her fork through mashed potatoes she hadn't made. "Something cute, palm trees, fancy brunch, spa day." Pamela leaned in, eyes gleaming. "It would be so good for you, all that stress you've had this year." I watched them talk about resorts and influencers and airports like it was free, like reality was just another app to ignore. Don said nothing as usual, pushing peas around his plate. Before bed, I checked the box again, even though I hadn't touched it. The envelope was there, snug and safe, but when I opened it the next morning, the weight was wrong. My stomach dropped before my eyes even confirmed it. The envelope was thinner, lighter. Inside, the bills were fewer. The edges of the paper were shuffled, as if someone unfamiliar had handled them. I stared at it, my chest tightening. Nothing in the house had been broken. No one outside would have known it was there. Only people who lived here, people I fed, people I helped. I walked into the hallway, my ears picking up the sound of Sierra's laughter from downstairs. She was watching a video, something about ocean views and room service. I didn't ask yet. I didn't want to believe what I already knew. But when I passed the trash bin in the kitchen, I saw the receipt, a boutique hotel booking, Miami, under her name. I knew then that something precious wasn't just taken, it was being spent. Some people break your trust with a scream. Others do it with a smirk and a shopping bag. Sierra came back from her morning jog in yoga pants that still had a tag fluttering under her elbow. She dropped two glossy paper bags onto the kitchen counter, grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, and didn't say a word. Pamela, humming by the sink, didn't question the sudden luxury. "Those look fancy, sweetie," she said, wiping her hands. Is there a sale at the mall? Sierra grinned, took a sip, and answered, I just treated myself a little. Self-care is essential. I stood frozen at the pantry, staring at the label on one of the bags. A boutique store, definitely not local, the kind that didn't even list prices on their website. My throat tightened. No one asked where the money came from. No one even looked in my direction. By midday, I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my keys and told Mom I was heading to Maple and Oak, the only cafe in town with decent coffee and decent distance. The old bell over the door jingled, and I was hit with the smell of cinnamon rolls and warm wood polish. The place hadn't changed since I was a kid. Same wicker chairs, same shelf of mismatched mugs. A couple of seniors were gathered by the window playing cards and chatting about the upcoming festival. I gave a small wave, ordered a black coffee, and slid into a booth by the back. Mr. Calhoun was already there, 2 seats away, flipping through the local paper. He glanced up when he saw me, folded the paper neatly, and offered a nod. You look like you just found out sugar's a lie. I tried to smile, but it didn't land. He leaned forward slightly. Sometimes I come here just to remember that not everything gets taken. His words landed in a place I wasn't ready to admit existed. I stirred my coffee slowly, and before I could stop myself, I said, Did you ever have something you kept safe for years? And someone just took it like it was theirs? Mr. Calhoun looked out the window for a long beat. Back after Korea, my younger brother moved in with me. I saved every dollar I could, planning to open a feed store. One day, I went to the bank and the account was empty. He said he'd borrowed it, said he was family. What happened? I asked quietly. He shrugged. Nothing. That was the lesson. The waitress, Miss Darlene, dropped off a piece of peach pie on a little plate. On the house, she said to him. Veterans honor. Mr. Calhoun tipped his cap. She does that every time, he muttered. Won't let me pay if she can help it. That's trust, too. I didn't stay long, just enough to clear my head, though it didn't work. When I got home, the fridge was full, literally, bottles of kombucha, imported cheese, coconut yogurt, things we never bought, things I never bought. Sierra was sitting on the couch in a face mask, scrolling her phone like she was preparing for a red carpet. I didn't ask. I opened my banking app. The transfer was obvious. 4 figures gone, split over 3 days. My name on every withdrawal. I walked into the living room. She didn't even look up. You used my savings. Whoa! She peeled the mask from her chin. You're just figuring that out? I stared at her. It was for a good reason, she added quickly, reaching for her smoothie. You'd never use it. I mean, you always act like money's radioactive. It was mine. She shrugged. And now it's in better circulation. Pamela walked in with a bag of laundry. What's going on? Sierra spent my savings, I said flatly. She needed a break, Pamela said, like that settled anything. It's been a stressful year. I'm the one working full time, I said, not shouting, just unraveling. I've been paying the bills. That money was for emergencies. It was supposed to be safe. Don't be dramatic, Sierra huffed. You've been acting like the house accountant since you moved in. Because no one else is, I shot back. She smiled just slightly, that smile that made me feel like I was 3 feet tall. Next time you save something, Sierra said, maybe don't hide it so easily. Then she winked. Sierra flew first class. I stayed home calculating how many bags of flour I could buy for the price of her hotel robe. She sent a picture that morning from the lounge, aviators too big for her face, mimosa in hand, captioned, deserved. I stared at it until the screen dimmed, then I locked the phone and placed it face down on the counter like it might infect the room. Pamela was humming again, this time trimming yellow flowers for the vase in the living room. She needed this, she said when I passed. It'll help her reset. I wanted to ask what she thought I needed, but I already knew the answer. Later that afternoon, I pulled out the old file box I kept beneath my bed. It was mostly boring stuff, tax forms, pay stubs, some lease agreements from my college years. But wedged between a folder marked 2019 and a pamphlet about identity theft was a faded envelope from our mortgage lender. I unfolded it slowly, the way you do with something you're afraid might fall apart. The paper was thin, crinkled from time, but the signature was unmistakable. Don's, under the line labeled Transfer of Ownership. I remembered the night he'd signed it. He'd been tired, worried about overdue property taxes. I offered to pay, but only if the house was secured in my name. It had felt too harsh to say out loud, so we wrote it quietly. He signed even more quietly. Now, standing in the same room where Sierra used my money to fund her luxury breakfast, I realized the house didn't belong to my parents anymore. It belonged to me. The weight of that truth didn't feel like triumph. It felt like stone. A breeze crept in through the window, rustling the newspaper I'd left on the table. The front page had a headline about the upcoming fall festival. Pie contest sign-ups were due soon. I ran a thumb over the smudged ink, remembering how Grandma Alma once won 3 years straight with the same apple pie recipe and a crust no one could replicate. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, not since the last family birthday, when Pamela had made a comment about Alma being too rigid and too old school to be helpful. But I remembered her words from childhood, said while pressing dough into a tin, "If you want something to rise, don't rush the heat." I sat down, pulled out my phone, and dialed. She answered on the third ring. "Hello?" "Hi, Grandma," I said. There was a pause, then her voice softened. "Meredith, that's a voice I haven't heard in a while. We talked for almost 20 minutes. I told her only parts of the truth, the parts that mattered. Those things had become unbalanced, that I needed space, that I needed options." "Do you want to come here?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I'd like to send someone your way." She was quiet again. Then, "My kitchen has rules. You don't get breakfast if you sleep past 6. You don't complain about aching feet if you wear flimsy shoes, and you don't get kindness without some in return." "I'm counting on that," I said. When we hung up, I opened my laptop and sent an inquiry to a real estate agent in town. I told them I wanted to list a single-family home. I told them I wanted it done discreetly. I told them the legal title was in my name. Then I opened my banking app and scheduled a new withdrawal, just enough to cover some moving boxes, packaging tape, and 3 one-way bus tickets. Pamela knocked on my door that night, holding out a container of kale salad. She said she made with love and hemp seeds. I thanked her, took it, and placed it in the fridge unopened. Upstairs, I packed Sierra's suitcase, then my parents'. The moon was full and soft. Mr. Calhoun's porch light flickered as he rocked gently in his chair, eyes half closed. He raised 2 fingers in greeting like he always did. "Nice night," he called. "Yes, sir," I answered. "One of the last quiet ones, I think." I went back inside, checked the flat log Sierra posted to her stories. She was tagging spas now, talking about soul healing, captioned with "grateful luxury sponsored." I turned off the lights, closed the door to my room, and whispered into the stillness, "Let them enjoy paradise. They'll be waking up in Alma's kitchen soon enough." They say autumn is for letting go. I just didn't expect to let go of an entire house. The morning air smelled different, crisper, like the trees were whispering that it was time to move on. I stood barefoot on the front porch, coffee in hand, wrapped in the sweater Grandma Alma knit me years ago. The kind of morning where light came in soft, gold-edged like it had nowhere to be. A fluttering sound made me glance up. The Fall Festival banner had been strung across Main Street overnight. Orange, burgundy, and gold triangles dancing in the breeze. Below it, Doreen, our neighbor 2 doors down, was already setting out her wooden pie stand. The sign read, "Best crust in Carolina." I sipped slowly, letting the warmth travel through me. Then I reached inside the screen door and picked up the rolled paper. The real estate agent had sent over the yard sign the night before, tucked in cardboard and bubble wrap like a birthday gift. I laid it flat on the porch and peeled back the last of the tape. "For sale." The letters were plain, bold, unapologetic. I walked down the steps, the dewy grass cold against my feet, and planted it firmly into the front lawn. It leaned a little to the left, like even the sign wasn't quite sure this was real. I turned back toward the house. Curtains fluttered in the upstairs window. Pamela's room. I imagined her waking up, stretching, expecting coffee, assuming everything was as it had always been. It wasn't. By the time she came downstairs, I had already loaded 2 boxes labeled pantry non-essential into the trunk of my car. She stared at the sign as if it had grown out of the lawn overnight. "What is that?" she asked, voice still thick with sleep. "It's what it says," I replied, not looking away. "I'm selling the house." "You can't do that." Her tone tried to be firm, but it wavered. "I can," I said. "It's in my name, remember? Taxes 2 years ago." She blinked, trying to reach for some memory that would undo it. That wasn't that wasn't supposed to be permanent. Neither was me paying for everything, I said quietly. Don emerged from the kitchen holding a cup of tea he hadn't made himself. He followed her gaze to the sign, then to me. "You didn't tell us. You didn't ask," I said. We stood there for a beat, the three of us, caught in the hum of a neighbor's leaf blower and the distant sound of children arguing over pumpkins. Pamela stepped closer. "But where will we go?" "Grandma's," I said. "Alma said you're welcome. She has room, she has work, she has expectations." "You're kicking us out?" Don asked, softer than I'd ever heard him. "I'm freeing us," I said. "You from pretending this is sustainable, me from carrying all of it." A red pickup slowed in front of our house. Mr. Calhoun leaned out the window, sunglasses on, despite the early hour. "That for sale sign's no joke, huh?" he called. "No joke," I replied. "Sometimes fall cleans more than just leaves," he said, then drove on. Inside, I boxed up bathroom towels, sorting what was threadbare from what could still serve. I packed Pamela's cookbooks, most untouched, and Don's baseball caps he hadn't worn in years. I folded Sierra's dresses. She hadn't been gone that long, but she might as well have moved to another planet. The doorbell rang mid-afternoon. It was the real estate agent, clipboard in hand, smile too bright. "We'll list officially by tonight," she said. "Great corner lot, solid bones. You'll have offers by Monday." I nodded and signed where she pointed. By evening, Pamela was pacing the kitchen, calling Alma on speakerphone. "Yes," Alma said. "You can come, all of you. But you'd better leave your egos in a suitcase and bring aprons instead." Don sat at the table, staring at his hands. I packed through sunset, the golden light pouring through the windows like something sacred. I wrapped Grandma's old pie tin in a towel, the one she used to say made magic crust, and slid it gently into a box marked Kitchen, Fragile. The last box sat by the door. I labeled it with a thick black marker, Living Room, Misk. As I labeled the last box, I saw Mr. Calhoun nod from his porch. "Fall's working fast this year," he said. "Alma Whitlow didn't raise daughters, she raised dough, and she expected both to rise the right way." The front door creaked open just after sunrise, and the smell hit us like a wave. Roasted garlic, rising yeast, a hint of oregano that clung to the air like memory. I hadn't been inside Grandma's house in nearly a year, but it looked exactly the same. A mason jar of wildflowers on the table, a wooden spoon resting diagonally across the stove. The old cuckoo clock ticked on the wall, slightly offbeat, just like always. Pamela stepped inside hesitantly, suitcase bumping her ankle. Don followed, carrying a bag and the weariness of someone who'd finally run out of ways to avoid change. Sierra brought up the rear, sunglasses on indoors, clutching a duffel she hadn't packed herself. Alma stood by the kitchen island, apron tied tightly, hair pinned back, face unflinching. "You're late," she said simply. Pamela offered a nervous laugh. "The bus had a flat." Alma held up a hand. "Don't care, late is late. Rule number 1. Sierra looked like she might say something clever, but Alma turned to her with a stare so clean and steady it could slice through butter. "There's bread dough rising," Alma said. "You'll be shaping it. No gloves, no fake nails, no complaints." Sierra blinked. "I'm not really a back person." "Good," Alma replied. "Means you have no bad habits to unlearn." The kitchen became a symphony of clinks and thumps. Alma handed Sierra a flour-dusted apron and a bowl of dough. "Turn it, don't smack it. You're not mad at it, yet." I watched from the hallway, unseen. It felt strange watching my family be humbled. There was no spa music, no catered brunch, Just the sound of work. Don tried to chop tomatoes but was too slow. Alma swapped his knife for a peeler and a bowl of apples. You've got soft hands. You'll core pies instead. Pamela offered to stir the sauce, but burned her finger on the pot lid. Alma sighed and handed her a stack of napkins. Fold triangles, neat ones. Later, I called Alma from my apartment in Charlotte to check in. She answered mid-stir, the clatter of spoons and the occasional yelp echoing behind her. They're trying, she said. Mostly, Sierra cries when she thinks no one sees, but she's here. That counts for something. 2 days passed. Then one morning, long before the sun reached the window panes, Sierra padded into the kitchen without being asked. Alma was already there, sipping coffee. You're early, Alma noted, eyebrows raised. Sierra shrugged, rubbing her arms. Didn't sleep well. Dough's waiting. Sierra walked over, dusted her hands, and began to knead. It wasn't graceful. I wasn't confident. But it was an effort. By noon, she'd shaped 24 rolls, swept the floor twice, and taken out the trash without being asked. Pamela stood in the doorway watching. Her lips parted as if to say something, but no sound came. Just her eyes, quiet and wide. She watched in silence as her daughter wiped flour from her cheeks and kept kneading. It wasn't the apology that softened me. It was the pie. A soft knock came at my apartment door that morning, not the kind that says mailman or neighbor with a question. It was patient, unsure. I opened it to find a small box resting neatly on the doormat. On top, taped carefully, was a card with one word, try. Inside was a single slice of pie. The crust was crooked. The filling slightly overfilled the tin, spilling out like it couldn't help but be too much. But it was warm, still faintly fragrant with cinnamon and something almost like apology. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a call from Alma's house. I answered. I made that one, Sierra said without preamble. Her voice was softer, unpainted. I burned the first batch. The second came out doughy. Third time, Alma said it was passable. I sat down at my small kitchen table, the slice untouched beside me. She entered it into the contest, she continued. Fall festival, this Sunday. There was a pause. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry, she said. I know I said it before, but I needed you to taste it. There was nothing more said, no begging, no promises, just a silence filled with flour and effort. I didn't answer right away, but on Sunday, just before noon, I packed an overnight bag and drove to Asheville. The festival grounds were alive with hay bales and fiddle music. Kids ran with caramel apples, and adults sipped cider from paper cups. The air smelled like cloves and fried dough. Near the far end of the row, I spotted the Whitlow table. Alma in her apron, Sierra standing beside her holding a ribbon that read second place. I approached slowly. Sierra turned, eyes wide. You came, she said. I said I would, I replied. She didn't hug me. Instead, she held out another slice. We saved the best for you. I took it. We sat on the folding bench behind the table. Pamela and Dawn joined us. Alma poured cider for everyone. No one talked about the house, or the bank accounts, or who owed who what. They just passed plates, forks, and napkins. Alma leaned over and whispered, She started folding laundry this morning without being asked. I almost fainted. We all laughed. That evening, as dusk turned the town gold, I stood near the parking lot, sipping the last of my cider. Sierra walked up beside me. I'm putting part of my paycheck aside, she said, for Alma's bakery fund. She's got dreams even at her age. I smiled. Sounds like someone else does too. She looked up at me. You really forgave me? I'm still learning how, I said. But I'm here. That counts for something. We walked back together. For the first time, our family dinner didn't begin with tension, just warm plates and warmer silence. Sometimes it isn't the grand gestures that change a family, but the quiet ones, a slice of pie, a second-place ribbon, a daughter waking early without being told. Kindness, especially the kind offered without expectation, has a way of working its way back to where it began. When we stop judging others by what we think we see, we start to truly see who they are. Like the turning leaves that fall without fanfare, goodness often arrives quietly and stays longer than expected. If this story stirred something in your heart, perhaps it's time to pass that warmth along to someone still searching for a little light.